Keep going.
For instance, take sports is another very good example. During the game itself, if you're playing some kind of a sport, or if you're playing music, for instance, then you're so in the moment. If you're playing at the top of your ability, there cannot be the possibility for a separate self. You're so in the moment, you're so in the zone. It's afterwards, when the game is over, that we think, I won or I lost. That I that won or lost was not present in the moment, in the game. It is created solely with the thought, and it's always an afterthought. The separate self is created with that thought. In fact, the separate self, it's not that a separate self is created by that thought. The separate self is that thought.
The separate self is that thought.
Oh,
That's
man, universal bar.
That also, there was something crazy that went through. I forget what it is.
It was the best thing ever. It would have made you enlightened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% guarantee.
With your purchase of $19.95.
Yes.
Yes.
Dang it. That last thing you said got me so good that it came back. It's one thing that we have to remember here is that it's so easy when you're listening to something like this to come back to, at least for me, come back to physicality and be like, but here's the thing, Rupert Spira, if I'm playing sports and then I'm really present and at the end I'm like, I won, and then you say that there wasn't an I, then it's like, what was the body that was doing all the things? Like, of course that was me. It was just me, it was just my physicality, not my mental was on, But then what he's talking about here is your perception. We're talking about your perception of self. We're not playing with the physicality of things happening out here. All the keys we're unlocking, all the locks we're finding, are in just your perception.
Nice.
And that's something with all these teachings I feel like we need to
nice.
root ourselves in.
That's really good.
Did it enlighten you?
That was
100% guaranteed.
Gonna ask you that.
For one small price of $19.99 plus shipping in hand.
Shipping and handling, $100.
Yes. That's where we really make it in.
What's crazy is that we were talking earlier about how tough it is to choose words more and more. Bang. Go right back to Sadhguru. I love all the words he chooses.
Yeah.
Like, he chooses such great words. Then we come to this about perception. Perception's been like very much on my mind. And then you realize how much he's talking about that too. Sadhguru.
Yeah.
Is just always talking about how the only thing that's important to him is perception. And that's a crazy one. You wouldn't think that. That wouldn't be like, what's the most important thing to Sadhguru? Perception? Really? But now I feel like I am using that word all the time. Perception. This is just my perception. Like, just describe, like, recognizing when things are just my perception, when things are other people's perception, and, like, saying that. If someone will be like, I know this, I'll be like, no, that's just your perception. Or say that to myself when I think I know something.
Wow.
Yeah. Because there is so much that I, and it seems other people around me, will go through and just say stuff. You just say stuff as if there's a universal judge inside of you that knows it all. And it's not just your perception. Yeah. That one's crazy. Like, this one gets me. When you judge anything, subconsciously, it's as if you are the universal truth and you know it. And therefore that makes you a viable judge of anything. And that's if you judge anything. Because then that means that you know the thing from every single possible perspective. And you know exactly what it is, which you will never do. So where's the room for judgment of anything?
And that's just freedom. Like,
yes.
When you're judging something, then you picked a side. You are, you know, you're only coming from here.
Yeah, it blocks you.
But then life gets fun. You can come
Whoa.
from anywhere, you know?
What was that?
That was just...
We are going to zoom in on that hand stuff.
All right, let's keep going. He holds that pose so long.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's like Osho.
It just seems to paint a picture of existence as sort of deterministic, as if we're an awareness that's sort of watching a show unfold.
Okay.
Which kind of bothers me, I guess.
No, you're quite right that bothers you, because you're quite right to feel a little rebellion.
What she just said is if your awareness watching the show unfold. Which is how pretty much every teacher describes what happens when you gain a connection with the true I, with the true self. They either talk about it as you're the sky, and this only recently connected with me, so it's like tip of my tongue all the time recently. You're the sky, and it's just the clouds passing over. Ram Dass says, if it's a zoomed in picture, you're like, wow, that's a really gray, cloudy looking picture. And you zoom out, and you're like, oh, it's just a cloud. And that's what coming into contact with the true I is, because you realize that you're the sky. Or you're the movie screen on which the show is playing. And you think you're the show, but you're just the screen, the white screen on which many shows play, come, go, come, go. And so what I think, I'm interested to see what he's going to say, but it seems like where this is headed is, that's what you are, and what's the thing that is going to rebel against that? And this has been another really good one for me. I feel like every time I want to say something like separate, I always step back and like, all right, folks, let's go. Yeah. Step off screen, back on screen. Okay,
yes,
next
new Mitch.
scene. New Mitch. Of course.
Yes.
Whenever I've been anything, it doesn't matter if it's happy, excited, joyous, sad, angry, all those emotions have been running through, and I've been pretty aware of them recently. I'll just ask myself this, and it always returns the stillness. I always ask myself, who is the one that's upset? Who is the one that's happy? Who is the one that's excited? Who is the one? And it always, it's like the chop. It's like the chop, because you realize that that's not you.
That's tasty.
Yeah, that's been very tasty for me. If it's tasty for you, try it. If it's not tasty for you,
you're wrong.
Yeah. Good thing we're right.
We got a horrible sense of humor on this channel.
What political party are you from, huh? There's a right and a wrong answer. You know? You know what I'm talking about?
I'm going to start the video so we shut this guy up, eh?
Because everybody has not just a taste of, but a love of freedom. I mean, isn't that what freedom, happiness, these are the essential things that we all want, and we feel if our freedom is ever curtailed or taken away from us in any way, we feel a rebellion in us. We know that so well as a child, and as we...
Dude! I know most of you don't live in America, but I've never understood the whole, in America, there's this huge focus on freedom.
Yeah.
Massive. And how brave it is.
Home of the free. Home of the brave.
How brave it is that we rebelled.
Yeah.
It's as if some people had the brilliant idea to do that external instead of internal. And so now it's like the idea that freedom in America is an external thing. I feel like Bernie Sanders.
Wow,
Not an internal thing.
that was a good way to pull that in.
Yeah.
Dang.
That it's an external thing, not an internal thing, and that the rebellion has to be violent. It has to be external. It has to go out. It has to say, I'm this, you're that. I'm rebelling from. Instead of internal rebellion and internal freedom.
And it's even when we talk about things like self-help, spirituality type stuff.
Yeah.
In the West, a lot of the times it's like, you need to, take control. You need to, overcome the things. When what I've experienced is that it's becoming more sensitive. It's like the more sensitive you become, the more freedom you gain. Which is wacky to think about, because usually you would be like, what sensitivity would make me, like, easy to get hurt?
Yeah. What do you mean by sensitivity?
I guess sensitivity, I mean, like, really understanding what's going on and all the small things being sensitive, like, sensing those and being aware of those.
That totally changed my idea of what sensitive means.
Yeah.
Because I had this block up of what what everyone says sensitive means.
Yeah, like sensitive is easy to get hurt.
But instead of you look at it like you're saying of
your ability to sense.
You're aware of your senses. That's crazy. Because that's a thing I noticed with anxiety. I would notice someone would say something and the anxiety would then be stored in me. Or even if someone like jumps out at you, scares you, or a loud bang makes you go like that, it's like the anxiety would sit in me. But then all of a sudden I realized where it was coming up. It would like come up in here, and then I realized I could move that energy out of my body. And that was only possible because I became sensitive.
Yeah.
And I didn't use the word sensitive, but that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It's benefited me so much.
And when you're not sensitive, you're gonna see the outside world as like,
the causer.
Yeah, the causer.
Like that makes me anxious, not me.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I need freedom from that.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest teaching for me in a lot of ways, or at least recently, of a character like Jesus. Like someone who dies on the cross, gives their life to whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you aren't afraid of getting pinned up and hanging there as you slowly bleed to death, it's like what level of sensitivity are you tapped into to be able to know that is still the best way to go? It's
you're like, oh, this is just the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Next movie.
Yeah.
Like I'm still the screen.
Yeah. Oh man.
Not just realizing that, but knowing it.
Yeah, and literally dying for it.
Whew.
But yeah, think about how all the enlightened beings on Earth always preach peace. Everyone, because it's like,
my goodness.
We hate to have our freedom restricted, and this comes from a deep intuition that we have that what we are is free, that life isn't mechanical and deterministic. So you're I understand why you say this feels a little deterministic. It's only that there is no freedom for a separate self. For awareness, for the one that truly is, there is infinite freedom. Life is not predestined. Awareness is not just watching a mechanical system that was set in place at the beginning of time unfold. It is, from the point of view of awareness, which is the only real point of view, there are infinite possibilities available at every moment. So there is complete freedom. It can go in any direction, in any moment. And that's what we love. We love that sense of freedom. We don't like to be dictated to.
That connects so well with what Sadhguru says about breaking your karmic bubble. I feel like that was just a different way to describe that.
Meaning, like, not, like, choosing your own path once you've given space between kind of like the automatic functions.
Yeah, it's like your karma, the way you were brought up, your environment, like everything that leads into that, your ancestry, all sort of like feels like you don't have a lot of decisions that you can make. And so then you try and make the freedom outside of you. You try and go on road trips or escape or leave home, things like that. Like as a teenager, that's like a very common
I hate you, Dad.
type of narrative that happens in the US. But then there's a different thing where you realize, where you become the freedom. And then all of those things are things that you can choose if you so choose it. But you are not tied to any of it.
It's like the way he was just saying that too brought me back to that thing I was doing where I was like pointing from the one direction,
Yeah.
and then pointing from all the other directions. It's almost as if you were like playing a game and you can only take one character's perspective. And if you're that one character, you know, anything that happens is going to have like all those things.
Yeah.
But imagine if you were in a game and you could take that character's perspective and then just flip to this one when you want. Flip to that one. And flip to this one.
And when you take one character's perspective in a game, you're always rooting for that character. And always rooting, say, for the main character in a movie. And you could be rooting against another character in a movie, and then there's another movie made where it's the backstory of that character, and then you're rooting for them.
Yeah.
That's a very real thing. Think of
the Joker.
The Joker. Yeah, and so you always think that you're this good guy, the good one that you're rooting for. Like you're rooting for your own ego to be successful. But then to expand your perception, it's like...
And the beauty of being able to, you know, root for your friends very genuinely, like something I definitely still struggle with is like seeing someone else do really well and being like, oh, like I wish I was like there doing that right now.
Yeah.
But it's like, what the hell, first of all? Like, how cool is it if you can have that freedom to be excited for them?
Yeah.
Or to like really uplift them.
Right.
And not need that attention put on you.
Yeah.
Because if you are awareness, like, then it's all just awareness and
right.
doesn't matter. But but if then you can expand that even further, you get to like not my friend, but my community, not my community, but humanity, not humanity, but life. You know? And it's like if your awareness can get to those parts where you're excited for the beetle outside,
ooh,
you know, then it's like all of a sudden everywhere you go you're like, wow, you know, that cardboard box is pretty cool. It's like the sunlight coming in, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so much to be grateful for and stuff rather than getting mucked down
In things like ambition,
pride,
trying to get somewhere even though you're just here.
Wow, this is a ride right now.
This is
what would you expect though from Bob?
Well, yeah.
And that love of freedom, it shows up in very practical, very ordinary ways. For instance, the retreat center we were at last week, and no disrespect to the retreat center, they were extremely sweet people, and it was a very nice place, but it was a little institutional. We all felt a little bit like kind of marshaled, a little bit, and there's a little rebellion in us. We don't like it. Especially those of us that had spent 10 years in boarding school, the slightest whiff of kind of institutionalism, it's just something in us goes, no, that's an infringement of my innate freedom. Even in little things, if you go, that's what's so lovely about this place. There aren't signs around telling us what to do and where to go and don't do this and don't do that. I mean, of course, there need to be some signs, but it's kept to a minimum here. We don't feel there are rules and regulations. Of course, underneath that there have to be certain rules, but they're not very present. And so we feel this is like home, because that's how it is at home. You don't have notices up all your home saying, don't go in here. And, don't flush anything down the toilet. Don't do that. Because we don't like that.
Well, then, does creativity come in from the point of view of awareness? Is awareness spontaneously sort of manifesting our experience?
Yes. Creativity is freedom from the past. Just the ability to, you have the materials that are at your disposal, and your materials at any moment are your thoughts, your feelings, your skills, your body, your material, everything all together. And yes, that there is the creativity is the freedom not just to proceed mechanically in one direction only, but to allow new ideas to come in, to use all these materials that are at your disposal.
Rather than reacting.
Rather than just reacting, which is just a continuation of the same line. Going back to, just going back a little bit, what we were saying before about freedom. I remember my son, when he was 8 years old, he just starting at the school that he's just left. So it was a 5-year school. It was the first term. At the end of the first week of that term, he came home and he said to his mother, they have an idea of the kind of boy they want me to be at this school, and I'm never going to be that boy. And he was right. He didn't turn into the kind of boy they wanted him to be. And it made life a little difficult for him, not to mention his parents, while he was...
He said that at 7? Did he just say?
It was his son, was it?
Yeah. 7 years old.
Also, I just need to give a quick stamp of approval to that boy that creativity is just freedom from the past.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And isn't that just evolution? No, that might have been bad. It's a thought.
You're like, let me add. Yeah, give me it. Go on. Give me the mic. Isn't that just evolution? You're like, what? I mean, maybe not. Hey, back to you, man. Back to you, bro. You're awesome, dude. You're so cool. Wow. I'm a big fan.
Love what you do. Anyway, here's the mic.
There. But although I had to a certain extent, encourage him to conform at least enough so that the experience of school was creative and positive, in my heart, I was so happy that he felt that. I was so glad, and I thought to myself, I hope the school don't have the ability to crush that rebellious spirit, that love of freedom in him, which all children have. And actually all adults have, but very often in adults, our culture and everyday life has kind of drummed it out of us. We feel that somehow to love that freedom is somehow going against what is expected of us. No, preserve that sense of freedom at all costs. And for those of us that bring up children, that is one of the best things we can do for our kids, to preserve that sense of freedom and of course help them to adapt to society at the same time. But to keep that fierce love of freedom alive. And yes, creativity comes out of that.
Thank you.
I like how they ended that. Just waited out, and he's like, cut. Very good. Wow. I don't have much else to add. That was Bob. You did it.
Bob, you did it. Indeed. Yeah.
Man.
I'm absorbing the teaching. That is
a timely teaching for sure.
Takes a while. Yeah. Very. It's funny. It's like when we watched Jiddu. It was like, yeah, that was the perfect time to start watching Jiddu.
Well, it makes you think, where did the thought to watch Jiddu come from?
Much love.